Hello and welcome to Wisdom Bites. Hope you're well. Thank you once again for joining us. Very much appreciated. Another wonderful day to look forward to for trading and investing. There's obviously a lot going on in the charts as well as outside in the wider markets and in the wider world, as we know. So I'm going to go through all the developments in the last 24 hours since our last video and take a look at what's happening with the price. As we know, there's been a big fall overnight, and we'll have a look at what we can make out of it in terms of opportunities, etc. But before I begin, the usual disclaimer: please remember, everything in my videos is always for educational purposes only. Nothing should be taken as financial advice. Always do your wider research before you make any important investment decisions. So with that out of the way, I'm going to start off with the Twitter page. And as we know, the invasion of Ukraine started yesterday. Yesterday morning, I tweeted this because we've just got to be very, very careful not to get sucked in by the emotions. Just like the Bitcoin price market and the wider stock markets, they play on our emotions of fear and greed and make us make bad decisions. In the wider world, all these things that are going on in the world outside, as explained by the media, they can easily get us caught up in that, and it can cause a lot of depression and misery and sadness and bad feeling, etc., etc. And I tweeted this yesterday as a result of anticipating what might happen. And all I would say is this: that while we've got to be sensitive about bad things happening out there in the world, I think we've got to just take a step back and realize that we mustn't get sucked into what the media wants us to get sucked into. And I just put out this tweet which basically says, guess what the media has got 95% of the world's population thinking about? And that is the current Ukraine situation, the COVID-19 that's been going on with all the vaccination stuff. Whatever you think, it doesn't really matter in terms of the wider aspect that I'm talking about here. So you'll be hearing about rising costs, the world conflicts, they're going on all over the place. But because the media chooses to highlight one conflict, but there's probably around about 200 conflicts going on around the world today. But because you don't know about them, you don't think about them, and therefore it has no impact on your emotions and your feelings and, your mindset. I mean, the world recession, everybody's now talking about the world recession, etc., etc. And all I would say here, the people who are really successful, if you study the people who are successful, they're about 5% in every country you go to. And what they're looking for, they're not getting sucked in by these situations of the Ukraine and COVID and vaccinations and rising costs, all that kind of thing. What they're looking for is deciphering the opportunities. They're looking for opportunities, some of which will come from these problems here. So they look at those things not as problems or difficulties or issues that they've got to deal with, because on an individual basis, there's nothing you can do about the Ukraine situation. There's nothing you can do about the rising costs. There's nothing you can do about the world conflicts going on. There's nothing you can do about the inflation. The quotation always comes to mind: why worry about something that you on an individual basis can't do anything about? So those 5% are looking for opportunities in those same difficulties. And then the majority of people wonder, why is it that some people are successful? They look at themselves and say, why aren't I where I want to be? So this is the thing that you always have to think about. Never get sucked in. Always remain in neutral gear, so you can move to whatever gear you want to, and then you're in control. You've got the power in your hands to decide which direction you want to go. Because I can tell you one thing, in my own experience over the last 50 years, the governments in these countries are not there to help you as an individual. You can call me cynical if you want, but all I've noticed in the last 50 years, virtually every single government, is that the people in power are just lining their pockets, lining up their contacts for when they leave office, and they can make their millions after that. They don't really have any interest in the common man out there. And as I've said many times to most people, if you want happiness, it's got to come from you. If you want success, it's got to come from you. Don't be waiting for a government or anybody else to give you that success and happiness. Okay, so with that out of the way, how does this relate to Bitcoin? Well, if we come back to Bitcoin here, obviously with the news yesterday that there was an invasion in Ukraine, a lot of it has already been baked into the price over the last 3 months. As you can see with this dominant trend that we've been talking about all this time, we've had a massive fall from 69,000 all the way down to 32,900 here. And we've had this relief rally, as I've been talking about for many weeks now. And now we've fallen out of that relief rally and on our way down. And in yesterday's video, I mentioned that the way the chart is looking, and with this big dominant trend line here, all the way down here, the chances are we're going to be coming back down to these levels at $32,000, $34,000. And that's exactly what we did. We've already come down to 34,300 and currently just bouncing off those levels at 35,300. And if we have a look at the shorter term time frame, the 1 hour chart, when we were coming up to these levels, as I mentioned in yesterday's video. So we have our two major support lines here at 46, which is now really something we can put the back of our mind, because there's no time soon we're going to be getting to those levels. And when we do, we'll start talking about it again. But the current two main levels now we've got to consider is the 40,000 here. And now, as I've been mentioning in the last few videos, this $32,000 to $34,000 mark here. Because what we need is clarity as to which direction the Bitcoin is going to go. Now, with a higher degree of probability, we're going to probably bounce from here. Obviously, there's a downside down here, down to 28.5 to 30,000, and even less if we want to think that far. However, these are the main levels now, and we are currently at one of those levels. And people have decisions to make whether to actually dollar cost average in here in their long-term portfolio and even try some swing trades here, or they wait until they get to lower levels here, which may or may not happen. That's the $6 million question here. There's no guarantee that you're going to get a price down here or even lower. And in the absence of that, it would be very sensible, as I've said many times, to dollar cost average at these key points. So for my long-term portfolio, I'll be dollar cost averaging even more of my long-term portfolio around these levels. And when the Nasdaq opens at 2:30 UK time, I'll be looking at the charts and the developments of the candles to see whether there is actually a swing trade here as well. So there is a possibility of a swing trade around these levels. But as I said yesterday in yesterday's video, that this relief rally that we were getting, that there was a very strong chance of getting rejected at these levels at 39.5. I mentioned that a strong rejection is possible here. And this is exactly what we've got. And the Ukraine situation has just made it worse. But if we zoom out, I want to show you something. So if you look at the bigger picture here, the reason why this is an incredible opportunity to buy in, of course, I'm aware that the price can go down to the 28.30 and even lower level, but this is a very key level here we're at. As we can see, this is a very strong support level there, support and resistance over here, etc. Even going back much further over here. No one knows the future, no one knows where this price is going to fall to, but at key levels, key decisions need to be made. And all I would say is that if this is really going to be the bottom here, let's say at 30,000, you're talking about from current levels, a fall around about 15-20% down here. However, the potential when we do have the bounce anywhere down here, let's say from current levels to go back to the 69,000, the potential to the upside is 93%, and the potential fall to the downside is around about 15-20%. So that tells you the risk reward ratio, and that's how I make my decisions. If the downside is much less than the upside, then I tend to dollar cost average in, and everybody's got to make up their own decision. I'm not here to give financial advice. I'm only here to give you my perspective. As I say, I don't even know what I'm going to have for lunch, so I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. All I know is that this currently is posing a wonderful opportunity to move in and to dollar cost average in, because once the price goes up to 69,000 and anywhere around here, we'll all be wishing that we'd have bought some more down here. And that's just the way the markets work. The fear at this level is very, very high, and hence people are very worried that it's going to go much lower. But when we were at 46, I remember people saying that, oh, I wish I'd have bought here at 34, 35. Well, now you've got a same opportunity here now. But the chances are people are not going to take it, because what you wish over here is not what you do over here. I can understand that with this dominant trend, as I've been mentioning over the last few videos especially, is that the bias is obviously to the downside. But somewhere along the line, we will be reversing. And currently, there are no signs actually. This is like a falling knife at the moment. But as I've said, these horizontal support lines and resistance points are your key levels where you have to make key decisions. I just want to show you something very interesting on the weekly chart. And that is, if we put the Bollinger Bands on here, I always find these Bollinger Bands quite interesting because they just give you a little different perspective to the normal indicators. And that is that they have a habit of going to the top of the Bollinger Bands, coming down to the bottom of the Bollinger Bands, going back up to the Bollinger Bands, and then coming all the way down. And currently, although we've gone up and then come back down again, there is still this possibility to come and hit this Bollinger Band down here. And that is around about the $30,000 mark. So that is obviously a possibility before it bounces back up again. Because currently, if you look at the weekly candle, it's below the previous time it came back and hit it. So the chances are, obviously, we've got a few more days to go. But if this candle closes below this level here, then this becomes highly possible and probable here. The fear and greed index is down to 23 again. Look what's happened here. Last month it was 12. With that relief rally, pushed it up to 52. Then in the last few days again, 25 and 23. So these are the times to buy, not when there's a relief rally at 52. So currently I've just got three levels, the 46,000, which we can just ignore for the time being. And now the two main levels are 40,000, which is going to become a resistant point. So if we come back up here, expect a strong rejection before we move to the upside. So there is an opportunity here to short the market, or if we buy down here as a swing trade, a great opportunity to actually make some profits up here. In the next week or so, I'm going to cover a special Bitcoin miner, which you may never have heard of. And I think it's actually presenting a wonderful opportunity, just like Marathon Digital Holdings did back in December 2020. When I first introduced Marathon Holdings, it was around about the $5, $6 mark, and that went on to $80. And there is another company which is very similar in the same position as Marathon, as it's just come on the stock market in NASDAQ. It is highly speculative, just like Marathon Digital Holdings was. So look out for that in the next few days, maybe next week or so. I think we'll leave it for now because there's so much going on in the market. I think I've covered the main areas, and I hope you found some value in what I've said today. I hope nobody's offended by anything that I've said. I don't mean to offend anybody. I just take a certain particular view with a certain mindset, which is based on my personal development side of things. And if you did find value in the video, then please do remember to like and subscribe and to turn on the notification bell. And if you want to leave any comments, questions or suggestions, please do so. And do come back to the videos and look at some of the interactions I have with some of the people who have made comments, because sometimes I mention things in there which are triggered by their questions, and you might find some use and value in those. So please do leave your comments and questions in the comments below. Until the next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.